Hello, Joe here. Hope all is well. Hope you're doing well. It's late here. It's about 11 o'clock. Just about to head to bed. This room is very light though, as you can see. So sorry about that. But yeah, Becky's not here, unfortunately. Again, she's gone to the US for a week to organize her visas. And if you have married someone who's not Australian and you live in Australia, you realize how hard it is to get visas and everything. So yeah, she'll be back in a few days though, so it should all be sorted. A few days, she'll be back Monday morning. So yeah, I'm free. Well, that sounds really weird. I don't mean in that sense. I'm free in the sense that like no one's here when I film and everything, so that's kind of nice. And sometimes, as I said, it's actually easier for me to record these videos and talk about stuff. So I did want to talk about. This is actually my this blue string is my little chemo bag, which I sleep with and connected to me 24/7. You'll see that all in the chemo video, what that looks like when it's plugged into me on my Portacath. But yeah, the other thing or the reason why I wanted to make this video was actually because I wanted to tell you about the second hardest time, and I think I now have a third hardest time in this process. Um, so yeah, it's kind of the getting to the end of week 4. So yeah, but the second hardest time, the first hardest time, as I mentioned, is when you get first diagnosed and that time between diagnosis and treatment plan, because you really just don't have much control and you don't know exactly what's going on. So that was the hardest time, and that was multiple days. It was 5 days for me between those, and even that was actually super quick. And that was all done in the UK. And then when I got to Australia, the first week I arrived in Australia, it was probably the second hardest time because I arrived and had a colonoscopy scheduled with the surgeon here. And I arrived, and within 48 hours, I was having my colonoscopy where I was completely knocked out, which is like a dream in all honesty compared to my last one. And I had to do so. I arrived, did prep. You can't eat certain foods, and then on the day before, you can only eat liquids, clear liquids. So I did that. I had the colonoscopy, which actually went pretty fine, as in I didn't feel anything. And then that afternoon, the next day on the Friday morning, the doctor called me, the surgeon, and he was like, "Hey, I got to see everything, and I want you to go meet with the radiologist." So the radiologist, oncologist, radiology oncologist. So oncologist, yeah, okay, sure. So I was like, "Oh, when do you want that to be?" And then he was like, "Oh, they should give you a call this afternoon." So I got a call like literally an hour later, from Dr. Chong, and she called me. I was like, "Oh, hey, we've got an appointment for you at this time. I'll see you this afternoon." So that was on the Friday. So I went in, and I thought I was just going to go to have a chat with her and see what this treatment plan was. And in that meeting, in the UK, they said it was a stage 2 cancer, and in that meeting was the first time I got to actually see the cancer, which is pretty confronting. Not because it looked actually horrible or anything, but it's kind of like, I don't know if you're looking at your arch nemesis, but you're looking at something which is you don't want anybody anymore. It actually wasn't as bad looking as I thought. It was more just kind of a lump with a bit of red on it. So there was a bit of blood, and that's obviously from my symptom of blood. It was because it was coming through there. But the more kind of confronting thing was that it was stage 3. So I'd up until that time, for like the last moving to back to Australia from London, had like 3 weeks between that, 2 weeks to move, and I was a week to when I got had my first colonoscopy in the UK. Sorry about all the details; it doesn't really matter. Anyway, but basically for those 3 weeks, I was thinking that I had stage 2 colon cancer, and I was like, "Bam, ready to do it. Let's get on the bloody train and let's get to work on it." And stage 2 is pretty early. Um, and then when I got to Australia, I talked to the doctor on that Friday, and she showed me, and then she also told me it was stage 3. I was like, not that it changed anything to the treatment plan. It was still isolated and curable, is what you want to hear when it comes to cancer. But it was just a mental blow for me, and I just remember being like super stressed in that meeting and like edgy. my whole body kind of tensed up and stuff when she told me that. And not only did she tell me that, she was like, "Oh, we want to get you in and start the treatment in a week." So I was like, "Oh, okay." And so the next thing you know, she's like, "I've already booked you in for your therapies," which she was also obviously amazing in all of this. She organized it so quickly, but then she's like, "Oh, I just want to get you for a quick CT scan, so we know the correct angle and everything for the radiation machine." And I'll show you what the radiation machine, if you haven't already seen, looks like. The hospital gave me permission to film. So I was like, "Oh, okay, sure." I no idea what that means. So they took me to this other room where they had a CT scan, and they're like, "Oh, we're just going to give you three tattoos." And I was like, "Oh, okay." And then my wife was like, "Are they permanent?" And she's like, the technicians were like, "Yeah, they're permanent." And I was like, "Oh, okay." So they were just like, they look like little moles. So basically, there's one on each side of my hips, and then one basically on my pubic line, my pubic hair line, at the front. And they did that. They line you up in the machine, then they basically do those tattoos. It's like a little pinprick that you feel. It doesn't really hurt. It's just like 1 second in each spot. So I got three of them, and then that is kind of your alignment. So in the future, when you go to the radiation machine, they can make sure that you're aligned completely before they start zapping you, right? Because they want to make sure they zap you in the exact right place. So yeah, that was that day, and then because they had organizing the radiation so quickly, they're like, "Oh, have you thought about fertility?" And they actually did mention that in the UK because I had that quick meeting before I flew back to Australia. They mentioned about going to a sperm bank. Um, so I had that. I knew that was something which was going to come down the line, but she was like, "Oh yeah, you need to go get that sorted before the radiation starts, like in a week." So that afternoon at the hospital, luckily they had a fertility IVF place or fertility. I don't know if it's called either. Obviously they do both. I think fertility specialist is the one because IVF is just one of the products of a fertility specialist or one of the processes. So we ran around. This was like 4 p.m. on a Friday, and we kind of begged with with the fertility specialist. Obviously, we didn't have any appointments with them. If they could just see me, just because of my situation, and thankfully, the gentleman, the doctor, was okay. Yeah, just come back at like 4:30 when all the patients have gone, and we can talk. So went and saw him, and in between that time of going to say, "Hey, can you see us?" and then coming back like 30 minutes later, when everyone had gone, when we went in for the appointment, he was like, "Oh, look, I've already organized for you to go to a sperm bank or the IVF place, which does IVS and donations and so forth." And they're like, "Oh yeah, so tomorrow 7:30 a.m. you've got to be in Parramatta and go to this IVF clinic." And he had actually rang the clinic, which he kind of runs, and asked the what do they call them? Not technicians, scientists. Shit, it's late, mate. Scientists a scientist to come in at 7:30 and not 8 a.m. when they open, just because of my situation. So again, all these things happened on Friday, which were actually super beneficial, but they just happened all so quickly. And yeah, I was by that Friday night dinner when we got home and we had done anything, I was just like physically exhausted from the jet lag and the prep for the colonoscopy to the mental exhaustion of just realizing that you now have stage 3 cancer, not stage 2, and that you just got three tattoos, and that tomorrow morning you have to wake up at 6:30 and get ready to make a donation. And all of those things combined just emotionally as well. So mental, physical, and emotionally, I was just completely drained. And I remember eating dinner, and even my mum was like asking me, "Is everything all right?" And I was just like, "I'm just so tired." And I just was. I didn't say a word. I was just done. But yeah, maybe I'll probably do a proper vlog. I do these kind of more, I don't know what you call them, basic, just using a point and shoot camera. Which is Becky's camera, and then my friend actually Richie, shout out to Richie, gave me a proper DSLR to do the other filming. That's why they look a bit better. But I'll probably do one specifically on sperm banks and donations. More that just like you just have no idea what that's going to be like, and practice makes perfect. Let's just say at those clinics, and The first one was definitely the hardest because the last thing I wanted to do was wake up at 6:30 after completely being stressed and go make a donation. So yeah, maybe I'll do one about that just so in case people haven't ever made a donation, which you probably haven't. But yeah, it's more just an insurance policy because it's possible that that I become sterile from the chemo and radiation. So it may that I not, but it's more just an insurance policy that that I have an insurance policy. So if something did go wrong in a couple of years, um, I'm not uh, back to being full strength in that area in relation to semen count. Then we can obviously use my my backup plan. So yeah, I'll probably do an episode on that because it's pretty interesting about straws, how much straws you have per donation, and what the experience was like in general. So yeah. Anyway, bedtime for me. I hope you're doing well, and thanks for watching. Cheers. Uh oh, what is this thing?